So let's go back to this website, and over here we're just going to quickly search Redux Persist. Okay, this is an extension to it, so we're just going to have to get this, and we have to make sure how we could use this. So Redux Persist, we have to first of all install it. So it's just saying like install Redux Persist. So we have to go into let me just copy this entire thing, which is this, and copy this, and then go to this front end and turn it off here. Oh, I just turned off my back end, so no worries over here. Let's turn that off. Remember, I told you a better way, but I'm just right now I'm just putting it like this. So npm in I and then redux-persist. When I do this, I basically install that, and it's gonna work. After that, what we want to do is we want to quickly rerun our application. Okay, and I want to go here to this part, which is in here. So what we have to do is we have to basically combine the reducers. We have right now configure store, right? Right now we have configure store. What we want to do is we also want to have combine reducers. So I'm going to tell you what's the reason behind this. Combine reducers, and in here what we have is from this user slice we have a user slice, and in here we have the secondary reducers. So what we're going to do is we're actually not going to put the reducers in here, but we're going to have to put them in a root reducer part thing. So I'm going to tell you what this means. So root reducer, and in here we basically have combined reducers, and in here we have this object, and it says the user is that user slice. Remember that what we put over here, we basically put there now. Okay, and here we could put all of our reducers. Suppose now we have one. We're not going to actually put in one. It's not good like that. We put in a root reducer, and then we pass that root reducer here. Okay, so here we have reducer, but what we have to do is we could put all of our reducers here, and then after that we also need one other thing, which is for persisting it, for making it permanent. So what we're gonna do is we have persisted state, and then here we have this persist reducer, and here we need to import persist reducer as well. So we could just say import persist reducer from Redux Persist, and here we basically put in the persist config. Now we have to create persist config as well, and this root reducer you could see over here. Now persist config will be over here, where it basically assigned to some key value. So key is going to be root. You're going to see this value right now. The storage will be coming from storage control space, and I think it's basically over here we have to import storage from React, not from this, but actually the small storage I'm talking about, not the big storage, small storage, which is like that, and this is going to come from Redux Persist and the lib and then storage. So I'm talking about the smaller, like that one. And then over here we have the version. We could just say version, and then we have :1. Okay, but all of this is great, and everything looks good. We have a persist config, and now we have to put this persisted state. We have to put this persisted state in the reducer. So over here where you see, 1 second. So over here where you basically see reducer, you could put persisted state. Okay, so you actually put the persisted state here. Like in the continuation here, we had the persist config, and we put it in here, and we also put the root reducer from here, and we put it in this persist reducer. We imported that. Persisted state will go here in the reducer. What we want to do right after that is we have to put in the get default middleware, and this is for security concerns, and so that it prevents errors. We basically get the default middleware, and we have to change it. So get default middleware, and then middleware, and then we have to put in a comma right here. Okay, and right in here, what we want to do is essentially what we want to do is we want to put an object here, and we have to say serializable check :false, so that it doesn't give us any errors or anything like that. And everything else seems to be good. I mean, this is just random. So what I believe here is that we have this comma, and I mean, we have a, yeah, we have to close this. This is part of this actually, and we have to close the other part. So let me just quickly go here, okay, and explain that this is that part, and then we have this closing bracket reducer. So it's basically that, like this. If I go down here, we have nothing else, man. Where's the export? The reason why this is all complaining is, one, we have this get default, and then we have get default middleware, and then this is closing here, right? You need basically something over here. So this reducer, I mean, there's something missing here. What I believe here. So random. Yeah. So over here we have this. Why is that reducer coming? Yeah, actually we didn't need to put reducer here at all, and it's just like this. So it's persisted state, get default middleware, and then and then we have to export it. So we have to export const, and then we have persist store, and then we have to import this as well, persist store, and then we have here we have persist store. Okay, persist store, and then we put in our store, which is this. Okay, now where is this persist store coming from? Well, persist store is coming from Redux Persist, and then ES, and then we have persist store. Okay, so persist store is basically coming from, not here, again there's something wrong, not in here, but it's coming from persist. So over here we have persist reducer, right in here we have comma persist store, like that, store, persist, okay, and then store. Okay, for that is okay, and then over here we have this persister, okay, and then everything else seems to be fine. I believe everything looks good. Now what we have to go is in the main.jsx, and here we have to import the new changes that we made. So first we have the store. Over here we have to import persister as well, okay, and then over here we have to also put a persist gate. So we have to import persist gate, and that should come from Redux Persist, and then we have integration, and then we have React. Okay, now over here we have to change, I mean, we basically have to put an upper persist gate here, tag, so persist gate, like this, gate, and then in here we have to put persister, which is the thing that's coming, and then we have to add our persister, which is what we imported, like that. Okay, that, like that, and then we could close this right after this provider right here. So we have this provider, we don't need this comma, and we have this persist gate on top of it. Now this persister, where you might be asking, like, where is this coming from? Well, remember this persist that we're exporting, we're basically getting this thing, you know, this entire reducer, you know, root reducer containing all this persist state, which is going to store it in the local storage. I believe everything looks good. Let's go back to our application, close that one out. Okay, we suddenly got an error, so let's look in this. Okay, it says uncaught error Redux Persist config.store is required. Try using one of the provided storage engines. Import storage from at persist reducer. So basically it's talking about Redux Persist.js at store.js line number 17. Store.js line number 17. Okay, we have this persist reducer. I believe it's okay. So persist reducer in the store.js. Okay, and then we have persist config, and then we have root reducer. So persist config, where is this coming from? Well, that's just defined here, but persist reducer is basically coming from from Redux Persist, okay, and then we're using persisted state in here. I mean, I don't see anything being wrong. All we have to do here is we have to change this from we have to say reducer, okay, and then we have colon, and then we put the persisted state, okay, right here. Okay, not persisted state here. I believe this is the thing that we got wrong. We don't have to call this persisted state, but we'll have to call this as persisted reducer, and then we'll put this persisted reducer here as well, like this, okay. And now this would contain that. Middleware would be, okay, this is not get middleware, but it's going to be called middleware just in general, like that. Middleware, like this. And then we have get default middleware, and then we have this arrow, and then we have get default middleware, serializable check false. Don't need a comma here. And everything else seems to be good. Persisted reducer, again, we have to put persisted in here so that goes away. Refresh. Again, Redux Persist config.storage is required. Try using one of the provided storage engines. Import storage from at persist reducer. So again, it's still saying add store line number 17. Line number 7, persist reducer. Configure store. Configure store. Okay, root reducer. Where's root reducer coming from? Well, that's just basically defined. And the storage is coming from Redux Persist lib and then storage. Everything seems to work. I mean, I don't see anything problem over here. So we have persist reducer and we have user reducer. Where's that user reducer? Configure store, combine reducers, and user slice. User slice. So you could just call this user slice to, user reducer instead. So, that's not a problem. You could just call this as user reducer, and this turns into user reducer. Okay. So that's pretty much that. Nothing else is, to be honest. Const root reducers, combine reducers, and then persist config is equal to the key root, and then the storage, and then the version. Version spelling is wrong. And then over here we have const persisted reducer, and we have the persist reducer, and then we have persist config, and then we have, oh man, I did so much problems here. Persist spelling. It wasn't an issue, but make sure you have the correct spellings, to be honest. Okay, persist config, and then root reducer, which is right here. Persisted reducer, and persisted reducer is coming from this Redux Persist. And then what we're doing is we're basically putting in export const store is equal to configure store, and then in here reducer is equal to persisted reducer, and middleware colon get default middleware, and then we have arrow get default middleware, and then we have serializable check false, and then we have export const persister is equal to persist store. So persist store is coming from Redux Persist as well, and then we're exporting this persister, and this is what we're using in the main.jsx, right? In the main.jsx we're using the persister from that store, and we're also provider from Redux Persist gate from Redux Persist integration and React, right? And this is how we put it in. Seems good. Refresh still, and over here config.storage is required. Let me turn off this server. npm run dev and npm cls npm run and dev. Okay, go here. I mean, it's just blacked out. There is some kind of issue. Redux Persist config.storage is required. Try using one of the provided storage engines, import storage from, well, we're using the storage engine. I mean, Redux Persist, we are using that lib and then storage at persist reducer. And Redux Persist at store.js. Let's go again here, config.storage. I'm putting storage coming from the same exact place. Well, I believe maybe this destructuring operator is gonna be the root cause for this issue. We make sure that this is like that. Again, still we have an issue. So it's import of storage from Redux Persist /lib/storage. Put that storage variable here. Put the persist config in here. Forgot the semicolon here, but it really doesn't matter. Root reducer, and we have persist config. Okay. And then we have export const store, configure store, combine reducers. I don't see combine reducers. So combine reducers is right here. And then we have root reducer, just named it as. Okay, I don't know, I randomly did something and it fixed. Wow. Maybe it was that destructuring thing, but there was an issue. It was major, and then after that we fixed it. So inspect over here. If you go to the network tab, not in the network tab, but now let's go to the Redux. So over here. So right now you can see currently there's nothing, null, current user, error, and loading. All of it is null, null, and false. Let's go to sign in, put in our correct info, right? So 1, 2, and 3, sign in. So right now you can see that we're signed in. Our state now has the current user, error, and then false. That's the ultimate challenge, is now the refreshing part. When we refresh it, the user is persisted. And you can see over here, persist is here and over here too. It says version 1 and then rehydrated. Now you might be asking, like, remember that question I said, where's this key root, right? Where's this all? It's basically storing all of this info now in our local storage in our browser. So if we go to the application tab, so it's going to be over here somewhere, right here. If we go to the local storage, right, you could see that there's this thing. You see this persist root? This is the persist colon root, the name we gave, and this contains our information, the user ID, all of that stuff, username and all. And this is the session that it's keeping. Like, even if I refresh this page, it still exists there, right? Like you can see it's existing there. If I delete this somehow, then if I refresh it, if I remove this, so delete, okay? Now if I refresh it, it's still somehow, I mean, it disappears. It's still there, but now it's null, right? And that's exactly what we want. When you sign out, you want to delete the local storage so that it's basically gone. So that's how it's working. And here we have, cookies. Here we have, access token, right? And all of this stuff is really good. I mean, you could delete this access token as well. The authentication is done too. So let's go back here in the sign in. And 1, 2, 3, Gmail, 1, 2, and 3, sign in. Our access token is back. Local storage has our information as well. This was the summarization for React, Redux, and Redux Persist, how we could use it in our sign-in authentication. And it's going to be pretty useful when you want to basically use it and populate things. Now, talking about this root reducer, well, you could basically combine so many different reducers all at once. Suppose you want to have a reducer to update the theme. So you basically put dark theme on, and now it has to be continuously dark theme in every single state and every single page. And that's where this comes in. So you could basically do that in that particular case. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this.